Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know we're all in different time zones, and I'm so glad you've joined us today. You're going to see that I'm very enthusiastic about what I'm going to show you today. And so I just want to go ahead and get started. I don't want to waste a lot of time, but I'm going to share my screen, and then in a few moments, I am going to turn off my camera so I don't distract you. Today, I'm going to be talking about a program called cZeus, and this is all about making math fun. I love math. I absolutely love math. But a lot of students don't love math. A lot of adults don't love math. So I love the fact that you can make math fun, and that's what this is all about. So I want to tell you a little bit about me. I started teaching math in 1989, a very long time ago, it seems. And I have a master's degree in secondary education math. And in the early 90s, I started becoming more into technology than math. And I switched over to doing nothing but technology and showing teachers how to use technology. But I still worked with math programs. I did pilot programs and things like that. I was out of the classroom for a long time, still in education. I returned to the classroom as a high school teacher, but I teach career and technical education. But I am a homebound instructor, and that's for students who can't attend regular school. And in the evenings, I work with them and I tutor them in math. And so I keep my hand in math. I love math. I've always loved math. So I'm going to turn off my camera and we're going to get started on learning about cZeus. So, what is it all about? When I used to teach math, my students were always like, why do you love math so much? Why do you love math so much? And I'm like, because math is a big puzzle. It's a big puzzle, and you take things and you put them together and solve that puzzle. And I love that. That is just so fascinating to me. And the kids were like, yeah, okay, okay. There wasn't a program like this years ago that showed kids that math was a big puzzle. And I'm so excited about this program because that's what this does. It turns math into a puzzle. And then I think now students are going to be able to see my enthusiasm for puzzle solving and how math is a puzzle. So that's what I like about cZeus. It improves math skills. It really improves critical thinking and logic skills because you really have to think through these puzzles. You're not just solving a math problem, you're solving a puzzle. And that's a big deal. So, our learning objectives for today, you're going to learn what in the world a cZeus puzzle or challenge actually is. What age group or math level is it for? And how do you use it to cover math concepts, especially when you're talking about algebra and upper level math like that? Now, I'm not talking calculus, I'm talking algebra. But it's not just for little kids. In fact, we recommend that you start cZeus with around what we call the middle school in the United States, but around age 12, 13. All right. So this is what a cZeus puzzle looks like. Now, there's different forms of the puzzle, and I'm starting with a very simple one. This is from the web browser, which is a much more stripped down version. And I'm going to show you the apps in just a moment, but I just want you to know the basics. So it's all about mystery numbers. There are puzzles, and you have to figure out the mystery numbers, which are represented by the question marks. There are clues. So, for example, these two mystery numbers add up to 11 and multiply to give you 18. Well, okay, that's probably 2 and 9, but where does the 2 go and where does the 9 go? Because it's very specific. And that brings me to the cZeus rules that you have to cover. Mystery numbers are only whole numbers between 1 and 9, and they can be repeated more than once in a puzzle. However, mystery pairs can only occur once. So the pair right here, 2 and 9, you're not going to see that anywhere else in this puzzle, with one exception, because rule 3 is the exception. When you're talking about 2 to the fourth power, 4 to the fourth power, 8 to the fourth power, you can have pairs that repeat. You can have squares and you can have exponents to the fourth power. Each puzzle only has one solution, and I'm going to talk more about that at the end, but each puzzle, there's only one way you can put those numbers in. All right, so the program has two basic options. There's a public platform anyone can download the app or use the web browser to play online. There's no restrictions. It's open to everybody. There's also a school platform that's called the 𝗖𝗛𝗘𝗖𝗞 School League. And if you're a math teacher, you can get verified by 𝗖𝗛𝗘 and you get an account and you can set up your classes, you can set up teams, you can compete in school-wide challenges, class challenges, challenges that go beyond your school. You can do a lot more. So as I work through this, I'm going to compare the two options and give you examples of each and show you what they look like. So let's talk about the platforms available. There are apps, iTunes, Google Play. You can use it with Alexa. There's the web browser, which is called 𝗖𝗛𝗘 Planet, works in any web browser. The School League has iTunes for Android devices. For Mac computers, you can download it onto the Windows computer. And there's also, you can find it in the Amazon App Store. So you can download it from here, or you can go to these app stores and download. So it has a lot of different platforms. Okay, so whatever device you use, you should be able to do the School League. Now, the public version is a little different. It only works, it's a little bit limited. But what I love about 𝗖𝗛𝗘, they are constantly upgrading. And right now, they're working on getting it into the Amazon App Store for the 𝗖𝗛𝗘 Math Challengers, the public version. So they're constantly updating it. So don't go, oh, well, I can't do it because I don't have that. It's not for my device. Give it a month or two, check back. You'd be surprised what you find. They're constantly updating it. All right, so let's talk about the public platform. We have two options. We have the 𝗖𝗛𝗘 Math Challenger, and we have 𝗖𝗛𝗘 Planet. The Math Challenger is the app, okay? The Planet is the browser. And there's some huge differences between the two. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat that I started with the web browser. And then I downloaded the app and I was like, oh my gosh, the app is incredible. It's so much more fun. It's just so cool. So while I like the 𝗖𝗛𝗘 Planet, there are uses for that. I find that the fun and the cool factor is more with the Math Challenger. And you'll see why I say that in just a moment. So let's look at the differences between the two. The Math Challenger, they're both original games. So that's kind of across the board. But with the Math Challenger, you can challenge other people who've downloaded that app. You can challenge them to compete and see who's better. You can create competitions and compete in competitions. There's cool animations. There's characters that you can dress and accessorize and have fun with. It's just a lot more to it than the Planet. The Planet is great. If you want a very minimal design, you just want to focus on the math puzzle, then the 𝗖𝗛𝗘 Planet is great. And as I said, if you don't happen to have a device that they have an app for, you can still do puzzles in the browser. There's a couple of other differences. In the Math Challenger, you have to complete so many scores, get a certain score on a level before you can move up. With the Planet, you can jump around and do whatever level you want, choose your difficulty, change the shape, etc. And I will demonstrate this in just a moment. But they're the same type of puzzles. It's just the appearance. This is the more kid-friendly, I should say. And I'm a big kid at heart when it comes to math, I'll tell you that. I think, like I said, I think math's a big old puzzle, and I love to solve puzzles. So for the kid in me, I do love the Math Challenger. If you want to talk about pure math, and you're not focused on the cool animations and all the extras, then Planet is more your speed. Both can be used with students, and I like both for different uses. So again, I've already covered a lot of this, but Math Challenger, you have to install an app. Planet, you're using in the web browser. Math Challenger has animations. The Planet does not have any animations. It's very streamlined. It does not have a character or an avatar, which can be customized. You can change the levels. Here you can't. This one is very colorful and bright and kid-friendly, and this is much more streamlined, basic in appearance. The puzzles are more challenging from the start when you go to the Math Challenger. Okay, think of that word challenger. The puzzles are more complex right off the bat. Here, you can start very simple and work your way up. It's up to you. With the Challenger, one of the things this is great with kids is because right off the bat, the instructions are very obvious, very built into it. Whereas here, the directions are available, but you would need to click on something to give you those directions, give you a tutorial. You can use the app on different devices, and you can go cross from one app, one device to another. So if you have an account, a 𝗖𝗛𝗘𝗖𝗞 account, and you're using in school, maybe you have an iPad, but when you go home, maybe you're doing it on a Chromebook. Well, that's fine. You can still access your account even if it's across a different platform. The apps will keep your account. So you can, however, on the 𝗖𝗛𝗘𝗖𝗞 Planet, you can still create an account and it will track your progress. Or if you don't want to do that, and I did this at first, you can play as a guest. The challenger, you can challenge other users, compete in competitions. In 𝗖𝗛𝗘𝗖𝗞 Planet, you're on your own. And some students I have found, particularly with some of my homebound students, the reason they're homebound is because they have social anxiety. This works better for them. They need that ability to be on their own. Working in a competition or competing with other people triggers their anxiety. So there is a great purpose for this being able to work on your own with a lot of your students. And in the classroom, this is what I will be using because I'm going to pull it up on the screen and have show it as a class. So there are advantages and disadvantages to each, but you do need to know the features for each when you're making your choice. So let's start with Math Challenger. And this is the one I say, this is the big kid in me, just loves this one. So you can join, and this is what I was saying. This again is why some students love this. I have some very competitive students. They want to compete. They want to know what their rank is. Not every student is going to feel comfortable with that. So again, there is a place for both. But this is giving you an idea of what the Challenger screen looks like. And you can start off and choose your play mode. So there's two training play modes. Marathon, take your time. There's no clock ticking. You can spend as much time as you want, and you're going to give feedback after every puzzle. The sprint, if you're training for competitions, you want time because competitions are timed and you earn points based on your speed. But this is good. You can set that. And you're either going to get, as soon as you put a number in, it's going to tell you yay or nay. It's going to say yes or no. That number is wrong. That number is right. And if it's wrong, it's going to count it as an error on your score. So this is much more relaxed when students are working, and this is more competitive. Again, depends on your students. You know your students. You'll know what you want to do. When you go into the Math Challenger, the directions are right there when you log in, and you can say, okay, I don't want to see these directions. I don't need to see them again, but they're right there for you, that you're trying to find the mystery numbers that addition and multiplication, solve addition and multiplication problems. And it gives you the rules, and that's great. So here's one of the rules just to show you what it looks like. You can skip it, but this is great when kids are first starting out. And I'm going to show you on 𝗖𝗛𝗘𝗖𝗞 Planet, this is not as obvious. There's a tutorial. So there are 14 levels, and if you want to play the tutorial, you can. And it teaches you how to solve the problems. It just walks you through it step by step. This can be very confusing for students at first. When they first start this puzzle, I strongly recommend, if you're doing this with students, that you do some puzzles as a class. If you have a projection screen, project it on the board, or if you can control their devices where they can see it on their screen, I strongly recommend you do that because this can be very confusing when they very first start to learn how to do these puzzles. But this is one of the features I was saying about the Math Challenger that makes it fun for kids. So you can choose your character, and you can accessorize them. You have to earn points for that. So as you score, you earn points, you get gold coins, and you can use those to change his appearance. You'll also see right here on the entrance to the training camp that there are levels right here, and it says right here, this is mortal. So I'm starting off, this is the first level after the tutorial level. If I try to go ahead a level and I have not been successful at the first level, the previous level, it's going to say, you must do more mortal puzzles the previous level before you can move up. You're not ready yet. Now remember, Planet doesn't do that, but when you're using this, the math challenger with your students, or if students are playing this on their own, they have to get to a certain ability level before they can move on. So this is what it looks like. And you can see, compared to the screenshots I showed you a minute ago, which were from Planet, this is much more complex. So the Challenger, the Math Challenger apps, they're more complex. And you can see that there's very little information given to you, and all of these blanks, you need to solve them. You need to put a number in these blanks. So it's a lot. And this is why I say, if you just showed this to your students and said, solve this puzzle, they're going to be confused. They're going to go, "Oh, I don't understand." So I strongly recommend you walk them through the puzzles, and you explain how to do it and you demonstrate. So you're going to start right here. Well, they give you one of the answers. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times what is 54? So the students, part of this is, where do you start? Sequence of events, critical thinking skills, logic. Where do we start? That's one of the things I love about how what this teaches your kids. This is teaching them some critical thinking and logic skills, because they've got to look at this. Well, if I try to start up here, okay, 2 times 3 or 6 times 1, where does the 6 go? Where does the 1 go? Where does the 3 go? Which one is it? There's not enough information. So part of this is, where do you start? Where do you begin? And that's a skill that a lot of students, in my experience, they don't know where to start, especially when you talk about word problems in math. They don't know where to start. Well, cZeus is going to help you develop those skills with your students. Where do we start a puzzle like this? I don't have a clue. So, but you look down here and you go, well, I know that 6 times 9 is 54, so I'm going to put a 9 here. And then 5 plus 5 is 10, so I know that's a 5. And then once I have my 9, well, okay, 9 times 7 is 63, so there's going to be a 7 here. And you just are going to keep solving the puzzles like that. And those are extremely important skills for your students to learn. And it's something that, in my experience, my students did not have intuitively. They didn't know where to start. They'd look at a problem and go, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to begin. This is a great way of reinforcing or teaching those skills. All right. So the first puzzle, and this is what, when you do the first puzzle, it's going to walk you through it step by step. It's going to tell you what you need to do. You're trying to find the gray tiles. It's going to tell you notes. Ah, this is good. So as my students are working through, if they have two possible solutions, in the previous slide, I said, well, it could be 6 and 1 or 2 and 3. They can make notes here. They can click on this and they can make notes to help them kind of articulate their thinking, to express their thinking before they actually try and solve the problem. If they get stuck, they can reveal an answer. So this does have, if your students get frustrated, they have the smart answer where it's going to give them that help. They can, if they really just cannot get an answer, it's going to tell them. Or maybe they just need an extra hint. They need a little nudge. So they get clues. So they just need a clue. So this is a great, these two are great tools to help your students if they need a little extra help. And here's for them to kind of write down what their thinking process are, because that's one of the things I used to struggle to teach my students is, if you have possible solutions, possible steps, write them down. Write down your possible next steps. Put that down on paper. And students didn't understand the importance, but this is another way to help teach that skill. Let's look at 𝗖𝗄s Planet, because it is very different. I still like it. I still play it. If I just want a quick game, I'll just jump on there, and I find it helps me get my concentration going. So when you go to Planet, unlike the challengers, you can choose the different levels. So this is Autumn Land, which is the second level. Summer Land, if I'm not mistaken, was the first level. And I can also choose my difficulty. I can also choose puzzle shapes, and this is just 6 of them. There's more. And the puzzle shapes, this puzzle is going to be quicker and simpler to solve than this puzzle, okay? But I can make this puzzle more challenging by clicking hard, and I'm going to have a lot more work to do on it. So it's a combination of the level you're on, the puzzle shape, and then what difficulty levels. So if you're playing this game, you can really kind of customize each puzzle, whatever you're in the mood for. The challengers guides you through step by step. You can't do that. It's going to work you through level by level, difficulty by difficulty. But if you're on the web browser, which is 𝗖𝗛𝗘𝗖𝗞 Planet is the web browser, you can, whatever you're in the mood for. I want a really tough puzzle. Well, choose a higher level, choose a complicated puzzle shape, and choose a difficulty level of hard. So each level, when you change levels, it's going to give you a chance to do the tutorial or play. Unlike Challengers where the tutorial was built into it and it walked you through step by step, here you're given a choice. Remember, Challengers and Planet are both public. We're going to talk about the school league in a few moments, but these are both open to the public, to your students can do this at any time. Have fun with it. Their parents can do it. Their grandparents can do it. Anyone can do this. So here's an example of a 𝗖𝗛𝗘𝗖𝗞 planet puzzle. Now you'll notice that it's not that big, huge screen that the challenges was. So they start off smaller, but you can change. As I said, you can select more advanced shapes and difficulty level. But you can see it's the same thing. Here, instead of a gray square, they actually put the question marks right there for us. Okay, the question marks are right there. So I want to explain a little bit, and I'm going to talk about this more in just a minute. You might be wondering, right here, these two numbers, what we call a mystery pair, these two numbers add up to 11 and multiply to give us 18. So right here, what these numbers in the middle are telling you, these four numbers here add up to 17, and these four numbers multiply to 144. So so we're talking, this is a more difficult level. So not only am I doing the mystery pairs on the edges of the squares, but now I'm doing a more complex problem where I have four numbers that add up or multiply to give me a number. So this is when we're talking about more difficulty. Another way they make it more difficult is they don't give you any possible. Right here I have a 2 and a 4. They might not give me anything. Okay, you'd start from scratch. So it's how much challenge do you want to do? How advanced do you want to get? That's why I like it, because some days I really want to challenge and some days I just need a little brain clear. I do something simple. So you can select the hint option and it's going to give you a little 3 and 7 have a single permitted common factor. Okay, so when you factor 7 and you factor 3, what is the common factor? Now, think about that. I'm going to talk more in a minute, but think about that. Common factors. What types of problems are we looking at when we're trying to find common factors? Uh, least common denominator when we're solving fraction problems, least common multiple, factoring quadratics. There's exponents, finding the root, the square root of a number. So this so-called simple problem is actually building skills that are going to be used in more advanced math problems. So the common factor is 1. That is the only common factor. And I could use this problem with a fraction problem and then say, okay, let's talk as students, let's talk about fractions. So what would be my least common denominator for 7 and 3? Because the only common factor is 1. And this is what I love about 𝗖𝗛𝗖𝗍. Yes, it's a puzzle and yes, it's fun, but you can build on these to teach more complex skills. And that's what makes me so excited about it, besides the fact that I love to solve puzzles. But you can also turn error assist off and on. So if I need more help, it's going to tell me. So I put in 2, and it says 2 is not a factor of 5. So it's giving me that error assist, telling me, this you were trying to find factors, not add-ins. You wanted a factor, and you're trying to find two numbers that multiply to 5, and two is not one of those numbers. So that's error assist. You can turn it off or on as you desire. After each puzzle is solved in 𝗖𝗛𝗖𝗍 Planet, you're going to get feedback. So it's going to tell you my time. And I will tell you that I was taking screenshots of my time and my errors. So this obviously was not a good score because I took too long. I had an okay score and I had an error. But it's going to give you a chance to replay it, see the solution if you couldn't even solve it, or let's continue on to a new puzzle. All right, so those are the public versions. There are Maths Challenger, which is an installed app on multiple platforms, or the Planet, which is a web browser, and you can still create an account. Both of those are the public. But let's talk about the 𝗖𝗄s League for just a minute. If you're a math teacher, you might want to do this. So, first of all, the app's very similar in appearance to the Math Challenger. I mean, it's going to look very similar to that. As a teacher, your viewpoint is going to be different, but from the student's viewpoint, it's going to look very similar to that. There are all of the different platforms that you can use as a teacher. If you have Windows devices, if you have Macs, if you have Chromebooks, if you have iPads, if students have smartphones that they're going to be installing this on, there's a lot of different options here. As a teacher, and this is exciting to me because accountability, documenting student progress, showing that what you're doing, because some people might not understand, they might think you're just playing games, and being able to show them what you're accomplishing with your students is really important. So this is a teacher dashboard, and you'll see that I do not have students yet because we're on summer break. So I did not have any students to add in here. So but it's very simple to do it. I can just click here, I can add students. Over here on the left on my dashboard, I can see all the students. I can see other teachers that have joined in, and I can see the teams that I create. So I can create a team and I could break up my class. Maybe I want to break it up by ability level and I want my more advanced students to have more advanced problems. Or perhaps I want a team and they're going to be working together in class once we're allowed to stop social distancing, and maybe they're going to be working in a team in class and I want to put mixed ability levels, so I can create my teams. Okay, students can still work on the program without being in teams, but it's nice to have that feature if I want to have, if I want to focus where what types of problems I give the different students, so I can really focus on that. So I can create individual competitions. I can, in my classroom or for individual students, I can have school competitions. I can go outside in the larger world. There's weekly competitions that are published by 𝗖𝗄s, and then there's larger competitions that are out there that students can compete in. But, and here's the competitions right here. It's going to tell you. Here's what I love, the statistics. I can get graphs, printouts by student, by teams, the competitions. I can see what my students are doing and I can document that. And that to me is really, really an important thing that any program needs to offer me if I'm going to use it with students. I need to be able to document it. Now, I'm going to be honest. I will not be using School League with my students this year because I'm not going to be teaching math this year. But I am teaching a class that I need to teach logic skills and critical thinking skills. So that's what I was saying at the beginning. On Fridays, my challenge is going to be, we are going to be doing 𝗖𝗄s puzzles and challenges, but it's not going to be on the School League because I don't want to confuse the math teachers if they're doing that and going back and forth. So my students are going to be doing, we're going to be doing it as a class effort. In class on Fridays as a challenge, and it's going to be part of their, I'm teaching them coding. Coding involves sequencing. Coding involves logic skills. Coding involves critical thinking skills. And this is a great warm up to that, a great fun activity on a Friday afternoon to get them excited. So this is more of the teacher dashboard. This is the bottom half of it. And you can see some of the statistics that are available. And I can see which team is active, more active. I can see the competitions. I can create a private competition, okay, just for the ones that I want to give it to. It's not going to be out there in the public. So there's so many options as a teacher for the School League. I think it's exciting, and this is something I am going to be strongly encouraging the math teachers at my school to participate in when we go back next month. But like I said, for me, I won't be doing the School League most likely. Now, I will tell you that if my math teachers don't get involved in that, then I will be doing School Leagues because I just don't want to confuse the students with theirs versus mine. But I will be doing that if the math teachers aren't using that. I will be going ahead and creating that. So let's talk about how you solve the 𝗖𝗄s puzzle. So what we're going to do is use clues we had here. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to 10 and add together and give us 7. Now, the trick is whatever number here, we need to make sure it fits with the rest of the puzzle. Okay, so let's look at our options. And notice we're taking notes. Okay, we don't know. So we used our note option right here, and we said we know it's either 2 or 5 here or 5 or 2 here. We've got to figure it out. So we're looking at those notes. We're making those notes so we can look at those numbers and not have to keep it in our head. We're going to experiment. Oh, 2 did not go there. So right over here, remember rule 2? We can't have repeating pairs. Again, critical thinking, logic skills, observation skills. This is something else this program helps you teach. Rule 2 said, I cannot repeat a pair. So we already had a 9 here. If we put a 2 here, that repeats the pair, and that violates rule 2. So that was telling us, oops, we need to have put the 5 here. Okay? So I think you'll see once you start playing this, you'll understand. But again, the observation skills, students need to be observant. They need to think things through before they just jump and put a number in. So now we know that this is a 5, and we know that 2 is the correct answer there. And we check it, and we get our score. Notice we had one error, and we are done with that puzzle. Now let me go back to where we were. Okay, so it's very simple, but I do strongly recommend that you walk students through and point out a few things like that, like remind them of rule 2. So what can this do for my students and me? And I've told you some of that as we go through it, but I just want to show you a few other things. But logic, critical thinking skills, yes, you're reviewing some basic math, but it's so much more than that. And you're making it fun. Like I said, I tried to tell my students math is a big puzzle, and they thought I was crazy years ago, 30 years ago when I first started teaching. They were like, ah, yeah, right. But now I can prove to them math is a puzzle because here's cZeus with the puzzles and the challenges. So of course we do have basic math skills and simple equations. So some number, and in elementary school you start with this, though we do not recommend this for elementary, maybe upper elementary, maybe when you get into 6th grade, but strongly recommend this for students of age 12 and older. Some students at 11 would be ready for it, but 12 is more preteen. At that 12 or 13 is a good starting point for this. But you're teaching basic equations, basic math skills, simple equations. But let's look at it a different way. Remember this problem? We had a problem like this earlier where we had a pair of numbers that added to 9 and multiplied to 14. That's a system of equations that we teach in algebra. Okay, and the two equations, and you can use this puzzle and ask the students, write the two equations, and then how would you solve this system of equations? Substitution would be a good way to do it. And you can work through this and solve this system of equations using substitution or whatever method you prefer. But that was the method I would teach personally for this particular problem. So, okay, yeah, it's a basic problem of two numbers add up to 9, but it's also a system of equations to solve. Factoring, I mentioned this earlier. What are the 4 factors of 144? We use factoring in so many different math problems, from fractions to solving quadratic equations. There's so many uses of factoring. And that's what this equation is. Even the simple ones like this, you're looking for the factors of 14. You're looking for the factors of 8, the factors of 72, the factors of 4. But when you get into this one, you're doing it a little bit more in depth. 144, you're factoring 144. Roots and exponents. So right here, we're talking about 2 to the 4th power is 16. Or if we didn't have these answers already in here, which I had put them in before I took the screenshot, what is the 4th root of 16? Okay, So this is going way beyond basic math skills into more advanced skills. So we're teaching to the fourth root, 2 to the fourth. We're teaching exponents and roots. And here's what I said about solving quadratic equations. So here's my quadratic equation, x squared plus 8x plus 12 equals 0. And right here, to solve it, you're looking for two numbers that add up to 8 and multiply to 12. And this is when we factor. We teach students to factor quadratic equations to solve them. This is what they're actually mentally going through. Two numbers that add up to 8, multiply to 12. This math problem right there, that's what you're doing. That is solving this quadratic equation, 2 and 6. Okay, so that is a brief overview, and I'm running out of time, so I want to just cover a couple things very quickly. So one is some updates, and I mentioned earlier that they're always updating, and I'm really excited about this new puzzle format. This is the Math Planet, and this would be the School League, which is also, you're going to see that in the Challengers app too. But you'll notice it's maybe a little bit more explanatory. So now they've got 7, and they've got that line and the solid line here and the dotted line, and it says multiply equals 28. So you're multiplying these to equal 28. And then I really love it in the center app, the center box, because I think that center box is much more clear now that you are multiplying all four of these numbers to get 140 and adding all four of these numbers to get 17. So I really think this new format is really going to make it a little bit more intuitive for your students. They hope to have this by September of 2021, which is right around the corner. So I'm very excited about this. And again, this is a school league. It's going to show the same. Now, remember what I said about the planet, the apps, the challenges, the puzzles are a little simpler. The the school league and the math challengers apps all start with a grid like this, with this many problems all at once. So it could be when you first start this with your students, depending on the age, you might want to start them with the planet. They can log in and get an account, and they can show you that. You can have them do screenshots to show you their progress, but you might want to start them with the planet just to get them going before, depending on the age, before they jump in. Now, at high school, I would say jump them right in on this one. They can do that. But or maybe you might have what we call special needs students, and maybe the special needs students might need to start on Planet with the more simple, the smaller ones. And again, you know your students. You know what your students need. You know what to pick to work with your students. The last thing is this is what I want to show you. And we have 6 and 5, and we have 5 over here. And this can be very confusing because there's nothing here that might, this is going to be 5 and 1, and this is going to be 4 and 1. So this is a little confusing, and sometimes this looks like multiple solutions. There's very few of these. Most of the ones are going to be like the one I showed you earlier, where if you look at the pairs, you're going to realize you can't have that pair. So right here, this pair is 4 and 1. This pair is not going to be 4 and 1, so that's not an overlap. But right here, this is going to be a 1 or a 5, and that's where you have that. You cannot have a 1 here because you're going to have a 4 and a 1 here, and this would be a 4 and a 1. So it looks like it could have multiple solutions, but it doesn't. And again, I really strongly recommend you show some of these to your students. Take some screenshots, show them to your students so that you can explain that really and truly there is no multiple solution. And that is the end of the presentation. I hope you got something out of that. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to turn my camera back on, and so I can see you face to face. But I hope that was helpful, and I hope you will try it. I'm so excited about it because, like I say, math is a puzzle to me, and now I can prove it. Now I can prove that to my students that solving math is just solving a big puzzle.